night had just cast a cover of darkness over the sky as I got home. I walked up the steps and fumbled for my keys. Finally, I found them and unlocked the door. All I wanted to do was just eat some dinner before climbing into bed and falling asleep. It had been a rather long day for me, and I wasn't in the mood for any more study. I changed my clothes, ate some dinner, and watched TV for a few hours before going to bed. Finally, I could drift off into some blissful sleep. Everything was going just as planned. Before I could doze off, I heard something out in my small garden. It was a distant sound of rustling. I dismissed it and turned over, changing my position. I was about to let the tiredness overtake me, but was disrupted by the sound of leaves being stepped on. I slowly turned towards the narrow window and listened more closely. The sound was rather subtle, but audible enough. I assumed that it was coming from a small animal, such as a cat or fox. Even though it was a plausible assumption, my gut urged me to get up and take a look. Groggily, I pushed myself up and staggered towards the window. I moved the blinds with the back of my hand and peered out of the window. It took a few moments until I saw some movement out in the garden. I focused on the movement to see if it was a fox. It was sniffing and prowling on the grass, stepping over leaves as it did. I chuckled. It was just a fox. Yet my gut urged me to get up and take a look. I turned and ambled back towards my bed. I stopped when I heard quick and sudden movement outside. It was like something had broken into a frantic run. I figured it was just the fox running over the leaves and climbed back into bed. I was about to pull the sheets up to my chin until I heard it. The sound of metal being scraped against my window. Almost every night, I leave my windows on one latch so that the fresh night air can circulate around my room. I left the window on one latch this night too. What could be scraping against my window, I wondered. I looked towards the window to see a metal crowbar being wedged into the gap. My breath caught in my chest. My brain was trying to comprehend the situation I was faced with. I rubbed my eyes, hoping that this was just an hallucination. To my dismay, the window was being prized open with the crowbar. I wasn't sure what to do. It was like it was unreal. Was someone trying to rob me? Or worse? I was frozen in place as the crowbar forced my window open with a crack. I saw a black-gloved hand drop onto the windowsill. At this very moment, my adrenaline kicked in. It was either fight or flight. I slowly rolled off the side of my bed before poking my head up just enough to get a glance at whoever was breaking into my house. I couldn't see too well, but I could make out a figure in black with a hood. I lowered my head to hide from view. I heard the burglar jump onto the windowsill before stepping onto the wooden floorboards with a creak. It was silent for a few moments. I assumed that the intruder was glancing around the room. After a few long seconds, I heard footfalls towards the door that led to the hallway. I debated with myself as to whether I should grab my skateboard and use it offensively, or stay put and remain as silent as possible. In the end, I chose to fight. If I remained where I was, it was possible that the burglar would eventually find me. It wasn't a great hiding place to begin with. Being as stealthy as I could, I slowly moved over to my skateboard and made a grab for it. I picked it up and glanced around the side of my bed. The intruder wasn't in sight. I took a deep breath before coming out of my poor hiding spot. I slowly walked towards the door with my skateboard raised, then advanced into the hallway. And that's when I heard movement in the kitchen, drawers being opened and shut. I put my back up against the wall and slowly edged towards the kitchen. I peeped around the corner to see the intruder searching around. Their back was to me. I pulled my head back and took another deep breath. This is my chance, I thought. I jumped out from my spot with my skateboard at the ready. To my shock, the intruder was nowhere in sight. A large knot formed in my stomach as I felt sweat trickle down my forehead. I then realized what was going on. Before I could turn around, I felt something hard strike the back of my head. Immediately, I fell to the floor in agony, dropping my skateboard in the process. I touched the back of my sobbing head to see some blood left on my hand. Before I could properly comprehend the situation, the intruder kicked me in the stomach. I felt my insides turn to mush. The pain was unbearable. I just managed to look up at the aggressor, and that's when I noticed something strange. Underneath the hood was complete darkness. This person had no face. The rest of their body looked relatively normal in the dark clothes, but there was no face. It was like staring at an empty void. How was that even possible, I thought. The faceless intruder's hood moved. I assumed that this burglar was looking over me, seeing what more damage they could inflict. The intruder then looked up at the knives before walking over to them. I crawled across the floor, barely holding it together. I was shocked and scared. I had no idea what this thing had planned for me. The intruder moved its gloved hand across the knife rack before turning back to face me. I tried to crawl as far away as possible, but knew that I was getting nowhere. The intruder pulled a knife from the rack and then marched towards me. I knew that this was most likely my last moment, but I didn't want to go down without a struggle. As the intruder approached, I grabbed my beaten-up skateboard. Just before the faceless intruder stabbed me with a knife, I threw my skateboard at it. As the intruder smacked it away, I was granted a small window of opportunity. Despite the pain, I kicked at the intruder's legs, tripping it over, and with my last ounce of strength, I leapt on top of it, grabbing at their hood. Despite the struggle, I managed to pull the hood down, and instantly, the struggle had ended. The intruder's body had vanished, leaving me to fight with mere clothes. I didn't understand. The intruder's body had disappeared. Due to all the trauma and shock, I fainted shortly after. I awoke to find myself in my room. My skateboard was leaned against the wall. I know that I didn't leave it like that. Regardless, I dismissed it all as a night terror or something before heading into the kitchen. I stopped dead in my tracks when I noticed a note on the floor. It had dry red markings on it, which said, "You survived the Prowler's first round. 7 rounds left to go."